Hi, everyone. Great to be here. Very much the graveyard shift. Thanks to the bankers going on for so long. They will do that. I can say that I used to be one, so they have to be controlled. So just to give you an overview, so I'm the CEO of Zinnwald Lithium. What is Zinnwald Lithium? We have a 100% owned project in the east of Germany. And we think that it has a number of really key advantages. So one, it's an attractive project. We plan to produce 12,000 tons per annum of lithium hydroxide battery grade. That can be done at an OPEX of just over $6,000 based on the PEA that we published late last year. There's the potential to upgrade the resource, and really the economics that came out of the PEA were very attractive. It's an excellent location. It's in Germany. There are several battery factories that are within 150 kilometers of us. It's also in the heart of the German auto sector. It's in the heart of the German chemical sector. So again, very important skill set there on the chemical side as we contemplate going all the way to battery grade product. In terms of sustainability, it is a hard rock project, but there's some unique aspects of it that we think have the potential to significantly reduce the waste and impact on the environment. And again, I think that's a critical point for a project in Europe. And then finally, we have very strong support. And I think sort of key part of this was just last week we announced a new strategic cornerstone investor in the form of Amalgamated Metallurgical Group, AMG, who are a very ambitious player in the European lithium space, and they're now a 25% shareholder in us, which for us was a great endorsement of the quality of the project, and we welcome them as a shareholder and someone we can turn to for help as we take the project forward. We've done 3 successful equity fundraisings in the last 29 months. All of them have been supported by our key shareholders. And we're now, following the fundraising we did as part of bringing that cornerstone on board just last week, we're in a strong cash position, which will allow us to take the project through to the next phase. So and what I mean by the next phase is de-risking on a number of fronts. Key amongst that is doing the bankable feasibility study, which we hope to have done by the end of this year, but alongside that, we're also working on permitting and other aspects. Why lithium in Europe? I mean, we've heard a lot about the gigafactories that are being built here. I think security of supply is something that the events of the last few years have really highlighted as being critical. And so being able to produce material in Europe is part of that. The difficulty of mining in Europe is often held up as sort of being a negative for projects like ours, but actually, when you think about it, the sort of tight environmental requirements, labor requirements, etc., one can meet those, and then that should provide a lot of comfort to the ultimate users of the product in terms of sort of certification and so on. So actually, there is an advantage to it. We also look at the European Critical Raw Materials Act. We welcome that. If anything, I would say it perhaps lacks ambition. I mean, there's talk of the requirement for 10% of local critical raw material content by 2030. I think that's not exactly like NASA trying to put a man on the moon in the 60s. It seems a little unambitious, but we will certainly seek to be part of that. Where is the project? So this is zooming in a little. It's just south of Dresden in the former East Germany. It's on the Czech-German border. And our ore body is actually part of a much bigger ore body. So we control the licenses on the German side of the border. The licenses on the Czech side sit within a project called Zinnwald. But it is one major ore body, although it's being developed as 2 separate projects. We will be an underground mine, and as I mentioned, we'll be going all the way to battery grade hydroxide on site as part of an integrated product. Resource, we have a M&I resource, 35 million tons. It is a large resource in the context of European projects, and we have a 30-year mine license on our core license area. So important to have a large resource that supports 35 years of production at our base case production rate, although we are doing some work around expanding this and potentially looking at what the opportunities are to overall increase the scale of the project. Again, an important point here is this is actually an historic mining area, and unlike building a battery factory or even a refinery or something like that, a mine has to be where the resource is. You don't have any choice as to where it is. But a significant benefit for us is this is an area that was extensively mined up to the fairly recent past. So there was a big underground tin mine just next to the town of Altenburg, and there's a lot of infrastructure related to that that can be repurposed for our mine. And I'll get into that in a little bit, but there's rail in the area, there's gas in the area, power, there's old tailings facilities, there's an old sort of mine shaft system and tunnel system which can be repurposed for our operation. This is explaining this in a slightly different way. So the sort of grey line here is the existing tunnel. That's in extremely good condition. We'll basically be using that to access the ore body from underneath. The old shaft system is there as well, and that can be repurposed for emergency egress, ventilation, etc. So for the miners amongst you, very unusual to be able to build a new underground mine that comes with ready-made drainage, ready-made ventilation. And the whole material flow from this, because we'll be mining the deposit from below, the material flow is downhill, a significant saving in terms of energy cost. Also, it means the material flow is happening 300 meters below surface. So again, in terms of social acceptability and disruption of things on the surface, again, we're not trying to put trucks through small villages, etc. Most of the material flow will come underground, and the processing plant will be based near the end of that tunnel. So again, very helpful from that perspective. It's also well located in terms of some of the other licenses we have. Again, I'll speak to that in just a little bit. Flow sheet, so the host rock, Zinnwaldite, is lithium-containing mica, so it's not a spodumene. That everyone always throws their hands up and says, oh, that's a new thing in the industry, how can you possibly know that it will work? Well, the reason we know that it will work is, and again, one of the benefits of being in a sort of a brownfield situation is we were able to take a very significant bulk sample from the old mine. We were able to do pilot scale tests, so we were able to take 120 tons of ore, run tests on that, and we were able to prove our flow sheet very thoroughly. And again, the flow sheet's been designed very carefully with the notion of how to minimize waste. So, as we think about kind of impact on the environment, CO2 is one part of that, and it's a very important part, but it's the whole picture of waste and how that can be mitigated or avoided is very important. So the main side stream from the mining operation, the concentration operation, is fairly coarse ground quartz sand, which is actually a product that can be used in the construction industry. So again, it's not really a waste material in the ordinary term. And then the other main side stream is the leach residue. And because we're doing everything on site, that can go back underground as backfill. So again, very much trying to limit the overall impact of our operation on the environment. The rest of the flow sheet is fairly standard. I mean, this has been seen in other commodities, other parts of the industry, in its various components. We happen to put them together in a slightly new way, but there's nothing new or novel here. This is all fairly tried and tested technology. I think the other key point to note on here is our main byproduct is high-quality SOP, so we'll make 57,000 tons of that. It's a highly saleable product, especially at the moment, given where potassium pricing is going. But we will produce a significant volume, but not so much volume as to disrupt or impact pricing in that market. This just summarizes what we had in the PEA. As I say, we are moving this to a bankable in our mines by the end of this year. The full document's available on our website, so I won't spend too much time on this. But I think what's most notable is post-tax NPV of $1 billion, post-tax IRR of 29%, And this is on a $22,500 hydroxide price. There are people here much better qualified than I am to put a pin in where long-term pricing is, but we think that's a reasonable assumption. Upside, so we've been doing a lot of work and we're doing a lot of drilling at the moment. We've also done a lot of work around ore sorting techniques. We think that the ore is extremely susceptible to that. That has implications rolling forward in terms of reducing cost, but it also means that certain of the material that's not currently in resource may well be able to be brought into resource, and that's part of the work that we're doing at the moment. And we see some considerable upside from that, but that has to be obviously proven up. Other upside, we have the core Zinnwald license. As I say, that's a 30-year mine license, but we also own another 3 exploration licenses. So we have quite a big land package in the area, and that's in the immediate vicinity. So you can see on the map on the right, they're all within 15 Ks. So we control the step out from the core license area, and then we also have 2 satellite deposits. Zaddersdorf already has an historic JORC resource on it, 25 million tons, and Falkenhayn, we're running a drill program, exploration drill program on that at the moment. We've had initial results. Those look very, very interesting to us. So not to detract from the core project, but there's certainly a phase 2 and potential upside from those other licenses going forward. In terms of sustainability, I talked about the overall flow sheet and the way we've designed the project to try and minimize the impact on the local environment, local population. That's key to us, and local outreach is key to us. We're currently doing a drill program in a village, and that's actually going very well. We haven't had a lot of pushback. We've just had more curiosity from the local population. The main question to us is this project happening now? Is this going to be a mine? So that's been very encouraging for us. In terms of sort of broad brush outline of where we're going, I've talked about the BFS, so that's end of this year. Ahead of that, we've got a major drill program to get through. We are quite extensively through a lot of that already. We've done 23 holes already, but we have some more to go. Alongside that, we're working on permitting, and then that process will run through 24, and we're hoping to be at FID end of 24, and then we're into funding and hopefully construction for production late 26, early 27. In the very near term, it's really all about drilling. So we will have, by the end of next week, we'll have 5 rigs on site, which is quite a big program for Europe at the moment. We hope to get through that by the early part of the summer, and then have an updated MRE, which we think, as I say, will show a significant upside to the resource. Alongside that, we're working on permitting and building out the team. So, key to find the areas where we need to add human resource capability, and then by the end of the year, publish the bankable. So I've rattled through that very, very quickly in the understanding that you probably want to go and get lunch, but this is just a summary of kind of what we see as the key points of our project. So I'll end it there and open up for questions.
Thanks, Anton. I was interested to hear when you said that you welcome the Inflation Reduction Act, and in fact you'd like to see it perhaps go further. Is there, could you talk a little bit more about both whether you see kind of opportunities in the Inflation Reduction Act, or whether the European Union and the European Commission is looking at that, whether what elements of the Inflation Reduction Act you think could be replicated by Europe, or perhaps Europe could go beyond what's been announced in the States?
Sure. Look, I welcome it in the sense that it's showing an understanding of the need to stimulate production in Europe. I would just say, on the face of it, when you compare it to what other countries are doing, notably the US with the IRA, it seems to fall a little short of that in terms of direct subsidies and incentives and the like. And I also think that its end goal seems a little unambitious, with only sort of 10% by by 2030. I mean, if Europe really wants to get behind this, I think they could do more on that front.
And you also mentioned the new strategic partnership that was announced with AMG.
Mm-hmm.
Could you say a little bit more about the benefits that you think could spring from that, or whether there could perhaps be more of those kind of cooperations or building of strategic partnerships between European players in this place to accelerate the supply chain locally?
Look, I mean, I think for a junior mining company of our stage, to be able to bring in a partner of the sort of caliber and quality of AMG is great. I mean, they are a player in the space. They have a spodumene operation in Brazil. They're building a refinery in Germany. So they've been through, or they will go through, a lot of the things that we are doing, and they obviously have a resource that we don't have. So, we saw that as a real endorsement of our project. And for us, it was a great partner to get. We haven't had to, go to some sort of offtake agreement or anything like that, which some others have had to do. And we have a partner who kind of shares our ambition for the project and shares the ambition of wanting to build a lithium industry in Europe. So we're happy to be part of that.
Another question that's coming from the audience is, how are you financing the planned mining operation apart from bringing in AMG? Is there more you can say?
Well, I mean, financing is it's a long-term project for any project. It's a long-term thing to put together. The financing we've just done, as I mentioned in the presentation, takes us through to the next phase. And a lot of what we're doing in that phase is de-risking. So the BFS is obviously one notable part of that, and that's a lot of the kind of the technical side of things, and having that done to a level that is acceptable to finance providers. So that's part of that program. Alongside that is permitting. So, as we tick these various things off, it will open up other avenues of financing. And like with a lot of things in a project, it's a balance and a trade-off as to which form of financing you take. So there are finance providers who will take permitting risk, and there are finance providers who won't, and they'll have a different cost. And there are financing providers who have one view on offtake, and again, it's you can have an offtake contract that's very strong, and that's great for a debt provider, but there's a cost to that as well in terms of when you do it and kind of what the pricing mechanism is and so on. So you have to be aware of all of the different costs, and what looks like expensive financing in one form might actually not when you factor in and do a proper comparison. So, these are all things we have to solve, but the plan is fairly clear, and we have the funding to get to that point.
Excellent. And another question that's come in is, how can Europe change the public perception of mining, and do you think this is important?
I think it's absolutely critical. I mean, it is. There is a sort of slightly hypocritical element where people talk about the Green New Deal. They talk about how great it is to have electric cars, how this is going to reduce pollution in cities, etc. And yet they expect the materials to come from somewhere else. And they enjoy the fact that it's not impacting them directly, but they have the benefits. So I think getting that concept out there, that actually it's important to have things done locally, because that means you have some control over how they're done. I think that's part of it. Mining is it doesn't necessarily mean that there are some people that will be inconvenienced by it, but I think there are different ways that can be mitigated and so on. So I think there's a big perception issue to get through.
Wonderful. Well, I'm afraid we are up against time a little there, but thanks so much for taking those questions and for that presentation, Anton. Thank you.
Great. Thanks, Bob.